Hello, my name is Bradley Moses, and today I'm doing a presentation on the impact of military trauma on veteran neuroticism. Some background on neuroticism. Neuroticism is a part of the big five personality traits, which also include openness, consciousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. Neuroticism has to do with the personality traits that, like the personalities that like tend to turn towards more negative emotions, like anxiety and other parts. More background on military trauma. Military trauma is prevalent in military veterans. Military veterans have to deal with a lot of traumatic experiences while serving. These traumatic experiences could come from military combat or from stressors around military combat, such as sexual assaults or training accidents. Uh, the studies that I chose kind of more tend to do with military combat traumatic experiences, but there are some other aspects of it, such as sexual assaults or training accidents that can happen in like boot camp that can leave military veterans with trauma. But the studies that I chose really kind of dial in on just military combat trauma and military. Well, okay, it has it. It does mostly an over the studies do mostly an overall uh like study on military veterans before and after they went to their service and did their deployments. One study kind of is only like right after they get back. Wait, no. Yeah, it's right after they come back, and then the second study is before and after. So the first study that I had researched was called mediation and moderation. And in this study, 972 U.S. Navy sailors serving in Afghanistan were given questionnaires that examined scales of combat stressors, PTSD, sleep problems, and neuroticism. Uh, the results, so they were given a questionnaire and it had a bunch of questions, a bunch of checkoffs that like would ask like of would ask questions specifically to like, examine like their scales of combat stressors. The results showed that the more people that served in military combat, the higher the PTSD likelihood was. And research also showed that there was a direct correlation between the two. It also showed that there were connections with neuroticism and how they were more high and more gained if they were serving in military combat. Um, the study, like I said, was given right after they got back from their deployments, so it doesn't really show how much it was in the beginning and how much it was after. It also another flaw of it was it doesn't show how much like it just shows like the likelihood PTSD. It doesn't really show how much it is like years after, like into the future. Another study I did that I didn't include on this was another study that I found that I didn't include was about it was about these soldiers, and it was a couple years after their deployments. But it was all. But another qualm with that was that it was only military veterans who had been employed. It was only military employees and military veterans that were employed at this company. So it doesn't show. So it left out a large gap and like of a lot majority of like those veterans who could not find work after that, and that must have been with like the disorders that like they could have gained in military combat and military service. So I just decided not to use that study. But the conclusion in this was that there was a deep connection between military trauma and change in neuroticism. Uh, the study focused more on PTSD, but it did show that there was no connection, like high connection between like military like service combat and like military veterans self like hate or like self like blame. It was all mostly like just correlation with like negative emotions and anxiety and stuff like that. So moving on to the next study which that I chose to put in here was a variety in the stability, which in this study they had 458 volunteer US soldiers who were preparing to go on a 12-month deployment. And in this study they had them do the Zucker-Coleman personality questionnaire, which was given to all the soldiers before and after deployment. And in this one, it was 458 volunteers who took this test before. The only qualm with this one is that it again. was given right after. It wasn't given like, a couple of years after. But also in this one, only around like 250 of them came back to finish the questionnaire after the deployment. And in the study, they had also like taken off like a good majority of the female applicants or the female veterans because they wanted to like skew it just for men since a lot of them did not come back. So they like erased from the 250 that came out, they erased like 15 of the women questionnaires again. And the results that showed from this was that there's a lot of them had changed in personality, more specifically in the personality of sensation seeking and social ability. So these are like the personality traits that, you know, the sensation seeking, those are the ones that like want to find you know, pleasure. So they like seek the sensation and they seek like things and the social social ability, social ability. I can't say it. Social ability, personality traits were those who, want sought like the traits that seek, you know, being social with people, being open and being, talkative and open with people. And it showed in this study that the questionnaires had showed that these had like decreased a lot. And it also had shown the questionnaires had shown that neuroticism had gone significantly up. The conclusion in this was that the personality changes after military deployment was more was tracked down to social and sensation seeking traits, but had also shown that neuroticism had gone significantly up. This slide is for critique and looking forward. In these studies, we see a distinct change in neuroticism in the soldiers after they come back from deployment. The only thing is some of the studies may be skewed because many did not return to finish the studies. So this is true in, like I said, this is true in both the studies. A lot of the soldiers didn't like come back to finish the study. So a lot of the, and not like, I don't think it changes a lot of like what the studies had like, uh had discovered, but it might have changed some of the information. And I think that's something to take into account when, you're looking at these studies and you're listening to this presentation. Uh, some looking forward things is personality change will continue for soldiers. I don't, as long as, soldiers are sent off and deployed and there's war combat, uh, neuroticism will go up and a lot of like PTSD symptoms will remain as a prevalent issue for a lot of military veterans, and it's hard to see how this would change in the future. So through the studies and the research, we can see that there are direct correlations between military veteran service, military veteran trauma during service that leads to higher neuroticism levels and higher levels of PTSD symptoms. The conclusions are trauma causes changes in the sensation seeking and sociability aspects of personality. Military trauma had a direct correlation with neuroticism and how much soldiers had changed after their service. Uh, there needs to there needs to be there needs to be a change in military service to help soldiers' mental health, but it's difficult to pinpoint how. Uh, Through the whole studies, we see it's definitely correlations between military trauma and narcissism levels. It's not hard to see why. Military veterans and military service go through a lot during training and especially military deployment. So it's not hard to see why, and it's not hard to see how this would affect them post-service and post, deployment and after when they want to get a job or when they return to their families. That's really what made me want to study this topic and it's really like begged the question and seeing this doing this research and doing this presentation just shows how much military trauma has you know uh correlated to higher neuroticism levels and higher changes in PTSD after war. So thank you for or after service. So thank you for listening to this presentation and thank you so much.